first wave of the civil rights movement had succeeded in breaking down significant barriers, but Jackson's primary focus was on economic empowerment.
We know that we are worthy of respect and protection, but nobody really knows our name, and so we're really still struggling.
He broke boundaries in politics, twice running for president, first in 1984 under the banner of a rainbow coalition.
Our flag is red, white, and blue, but our nation is rainbow. Red, yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in God's sight.
In 1988, he was, for a time, the Democratic Party's frontrunner for the presidential nomination, winning 11 primaries and caucuses before eventually losing the nomination to Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis.
I'd rather go down in the stirring fight than drowse to death at the sheltered shore.
Jackson also took on the role of freelance international negotiator, meeting with some of the world's most brutal tyrants.
Overseas, the American black activist Jesse Jackson has become an intermediary in the Middle East.
In 1984, he met with Syria's Hafez al-Assad,
Goodman and the Reverend Jackson arrived at Andrews Air Force Base,
securing the release of downed American naval officer Lieutenant Robert Goodman. In 1990, he held talks with Saddam Hussein to free foreign nationals being held in Iraq as human shields. And in 1999, he went behind enemy lines again to meet with Slobodan Milosevic to negotiate the return of 3 American prisoners of war. At times, he was a spiritual advisor, counseling President Clinton in his darkest hour, facing impeachment over a sex scandal. But Jackson had his own moments where he fell far short of what he had championed. In the mid-1980s, facing controversy for allegedly making a highly offensive remark about the Jewish community.
I deny, and I do not recall ever making such a statement in any context that would be remotely construed as being either anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. However innocent and unintended, it was insensitive and wrong.
And as an ordained minister, having to admit in 2001 he had fathered a child after an affair with a former staffer. Although somewhat diminished, Jackson leaned in on his faith of forgiveness and redemption and kept fighting, keeping his eyes on the prize. He saw one of his hopes realized on election night in 2008 in Chicago's Grant Park.
America, I have never been more hopeful than I am tonight that we will get there.
He wept as President-elect Barack Obama delivered his victory speech. In recent years, the effects of age and a long illness had slowed his gait, but not his spirit. After the conviction of Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin for the killing of George Floyd, Jackson made it a point to be there in Minneapolis. Through it all, Jackson's faith and hope in what America could be endured.
America will get better and better. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. I love you very much.
Here's ABC's Pierre Thomas with a look back at Jackson's life.
All of his life, the Reverend Jesse Jackson preaching, exhorting, demanding justice in a quest to help his people and nation overcome.
We ain't the bottom. We the foundation.
Always marching, civil rights nonviolent soldier. There he was, shoulder to shoulder with Martin Luther King Jr. after witnessing the beatings of Bloody Sunday on television. Jackson eventually became one of the top lieutenants in the critical Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which challenged the Jim Crow South's withering oppression. A witness to history, he was there on that fateful April evening when King was struck down by an assassin's bullet.
I tried to feel his head, and I asked him, I said, Dr. King, do you hear me? Dr. King, do you hear me? And he didn't say anything.
After a leadership struggle with King's successor, Reverend Ralph Abernathy, Jackson split from the SCLC and formed a new organization, People United to Save Humanity, PUSH.
Beautiful.
After Dr. King, I don't think anyone captured the spirit of America like Reverend Jackson, and he took the movement north.
Jesse Jackson's life was defined by a relentless fight for justice and equality.
I was born in Greenville, South Carolina, in rampant, radical racial segregation. I had to be taught to go to the back of the bus or be arrested.
Those early experiences drove Jackson to join the civil rights movement.
The fact is, against the odds, we knew there were great odds, we were winning.
In 1965, he began working for Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
I learned so much from him, such a great source of inspiration.
King named Jackson to lead Operation Breadbasket in Chicago, an economic justice campaign for Black people. However, some say King was frustrated by Jackson's brashness and ambition.
I'm sure he thought I needed more time. I was 24 years old.
Both men were in Memphis in April 1968 to support striking sanitation workers. King and other civil rights leaders were staying at the Lorraine Motel.
He said, Jesse, you know, you don't even have on a shirt and tie. You don't even have on a tie. We're going to dinner. I said, Doc, it does not require a tie, just an appetite. We laughed. I said, Doc, and the bullet hit. Everything changed at that moment. It was a defining moment in the history of our struggle.
With King gone, his movement was adrift. Years later, Jackson formed Operation Push, pressuring businesses to open up to Black workers and customers and adding more focus on Black responsibility, championed in the 1972 concert Wattstax.
In Watts, we have shifted from burn, baby, burn to learn, baby, learn.
And he expanded his own global reach too, helping to free U.S. Lieutenant Robert Goodman, who was held by Syria after being shot down, and later other Americans held in Cuba and Serbia.
I learned how to negotiate as an African American growing up among white people. You have to negotiate every day.
The Reverend set his sights on the White House in 1984.
Milking cows in Iowa, they're coming back to the inner cities. So I learned a lot during that period.
First thought of as a marginal candidate, Jackson finished third in the primary race with 18% of the vote. That campaign almost went off the rails when Jackson used an ethnic slur to refer to New York Jews.
There's mistakes and they hurt.
He ran again in 1988, this time doubling his vote count and finishing in second in the Democratic race.
Keep hope alive on tomorrow night.
At the time, it was the farthest any Black candidate had gone in a presidential contest.
But 20 years later, when President Barack ran, we were laying the groundwork for that season.
In 2017, Jackson had a new battle to fight, Parkinson's disease. But that didn't stop him.
If you hold on, if your cause is right and your grip is tight, you'll make it.
Late in life, he was still fighting. He was arrested in Washington while demonstrating for voting rights. His silent presence at the trial of Ahmaud Arbery's killers prompted defense lawyers to ask that he leave the courtroom. Jackson stayed.
I am somebody. I am somebody.
From the Jim Crow South, through the turbulent 60s, and into the Black Lives Matter movement, Jesse Jackson was a constant, unyielding voice for justice.
With a Fox News alert, civil rights activist Reverend Jesse Jackson has died at the age of 84. His family announcing the news overnight. More on his life and legacy right now.
Put your hands together for our leader, the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson.
Civil rights leader, politician, and community activist Jesse Louis Jackson was born October 8, 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina. He met Jacqueline Lavinia Brown. They got married in 1962 and together had 5 children. At that time, in the early 60s, the country was in the throes of the civil rights movement.
Will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood? I have a dream.
Jackson says he was so inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King, he went to work for him and was with King when he was assassinated in 1968.
I actually succeeded Dr. King after King's assassination in 1968 as the premier leader of the civil rights movement.
I never stopped serving.
In 1971, Jackson founded a group called People United to Save Humanity, or Operation Push. Jackson ran for the presidency in 1983, but lost the Democratic nomination to Walter Mondale. In a second try in '88, Jackson landed second place in the Democratic primaries, falling short to then Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis.
He played a significant role in the transition, to some extent, of the civil rights movement from protest to politics.
Around this time, the civil rights leader formed a group he named the Rainbow Coalition because it was made up of people from all races and ethnic backgrounds.
That is the unfinished business that I'm about, fighting for equal opportunity for all Americans and peace in the world.
But Jackson's reputation took a major hit in early 2001. A tabloid broke the news that the Reverend fathered a child out of wedlock with one of his aides, Karen Stanford. Some supporters were outraged, but several civil rights leaders spoke out in support of Jackson.
And Reverend Jackson will get up, brush himself off, and keep on marching. And we'll be marching right there with him. Congratulations.
Over the years, Jackson was recognized over and over again for his work on equal rights and efforts to help the less fortunate. He collected over 35 honorary degrees.
Reverend Jesse Jackson is just so special, not just to us, not just to our country, but to our world.
Supporters say in the last several decades, Jesse Jackson did more than anyone to move this country's civil rights agenda forward.
We now have the first African-American president. It would not have been possible if it were not for Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson.
I've sought to be a long-distance runner. I would like to be measured by my box score, not by the home run or the strikeout, but being a long-distance servant.
And Jackson's followers promised the movement will continue.
We are not afraid.
Mike Tobin, Fox News.